All right, do you want to start from the top?
Yeah. Yep. Well, Chris, thanks for coming in. Well, I'm actually in your place, so thanks for allowing me in.
Pleasure, it's great.
Introducing you to a whole lot of business owners out there, small to medium business owners, and wanted to introduce you to them from your experience in really scaling a couple of very, very well-known companies, or one very well-known company and one that's going to be on the map real soon.
We hope.
Yeah, 100%. Just for a bit of background, you're the ex-CEO of Xero. Took Xero from 6 people to 270 in 5 years.
Yes.
And now MyProsperity, which is an advisor, broker, and accountant-based tech platform.
Yep.
And you're on a similar trajectory. You started off with 12 about 12 months ago when we first caught up, and now you're at 40.
Yeah, just over. Yeah, it's exciting.
So fair to say you're scaling pretty aggressively through both businesses.
Yep.
How'd you become to be the CEO of Xero and then ultimately MyProsperity?
Yeah, look, so it's a little bit of a story of an escaped corporate soldier. So I'd spent 20 odd years in big corporate end of town, and worked for 2 big US-based multinationals, one of which was Microsoft. So I spent 15 years at Microsoft, and I think it was 2010, and I got to the point where I think like a lot of people, I just wasn't enjoying it. And being around big companies, I just wanted to go and do something different. And I literally just came in one day and quit. I didn't have a job to go to. Had a couple of mortgages. My wife thought I was mad, but it was actually interesting because I was in a meeting. It was one of those defining moments where I was in a meeting, and I remember it was August 2010, looking around the room, just thinking, what am I doing? I'm so unhappy. And it wasn't so much, it was just a number of factors. And the next day when I flew out, I was at the airport. My flight got delayed 3 hours. I made 6 phone calls to people on my network, said, hey, I'm going to quit Microsoft. And lo and behold, those 6 phone calls, I had 3 job opportunities. Now, none of them came through, but it just gave me the confidence to go, you know what, I'm going to leave. So 2 weeks later, I quit. And the Xero thing sort of came about really through a network. Look, it was just, I was looking for something that was exciting, that was small startup, that I could really, all the things I learned, don't get me wrong, I mean, Microsoft was amazing. Like, it was like doing 3 MBAs, and they really stretched people. And so it was a fantastic area. I'll probably just stay too long. Well, that's the reality. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that have been in that situation. So the Xero thing really came about through just being in the right place at the right time. I had, a friend of mine who actually now runs it, Steve Vamos, had actually met the founder, and he said, look, I've met this mad guy out of New Zealand, Rod Drury, who started this tech company. It'd be great for you. He's looking for someone to run Australia. So that's how it started. So late 2010.
Oh, wow.
Rod contacted me, and the rest is history. But I'd sort of resigned by then. I was just seeing on the way out. So that's how I started there.
It's kind of serendipitous.
Yeah, it was. And then the MyProsperity, I worked there for 5 years, and it was a fabulous journey. It was crazy. It went way better than any of us had sort of expected. But I think like anything, probably from the Microsoft experience, I'd sort of learnt that keep challenging yourself and look for the next thing. And it might sound bizarre. A lot of people say, why did you leave? Because it was flying, and it still is. But personally for me, I just wanted another challenge. I'd seen all this great stuff happening around tech. And I have to say, for me, those early days when you're figuring shit out and just kind of, things aren't making sense, and you just got to kind of go with it, and just, that's fun. I mean, Xero's got to a point now where it's a big beast, and mate, I'm so proud of what that team and us achieved. But I just wanted to go and do something else. And so, so then I started getting involved in a few different tech startups, and the MyProsperity one popped up.
So you like all of the stuff which drives most people batty, like completely batshit crazy?
Look, I'll be honest. There's days where you just go, what have I done? What was I thinking? And that's normal. I mean, I think, and I'm not an entrepreneur. I admire entrepreneurs, right? So I'm a bit of a ring-in, right? So I can spot good tech, and my experience with Microsoft allowed me to come in with more of a kind of corporate mindset about how to build things at scale and to piece together things so that they worked better.
Yeah.
But the thought of going and actually doing my own thing kind of scares me, and that's why I've got such admiration for people like Pete McCarthy, MyProsperity. I mean, the early days of those businesses can be very, very lonely when you're trying to prove something out. The MyProsperity thing, the way that started, I was a customer. So when I was at Xero, my advisor got me onto the platform. So it wasn't until a year later, I ended up investing in like 5 tech startups after Xero. And I was reading an article about MyProsperity, and I'm thinking, oh, I love this platform. I was using it, and really interesting optics, like, the CTO, Stephen Shaker, was effectively the tech guy who built car sales. I thought, well, that's interesting.
Wow.
Michael Happel, who's on the board, was the former chairman of PwC, and I thought, well, these guys are pretty serious. So I sent Pete an email just out of the blue. You might know me, ran Xero. Probably don't know I'm a customer. I really like what you've built. I got some feedback. I think there's some things you can improve. Sent an email, 5 minutes later the phone rang, it was Pete, and you've met Pete. He's a fairly tenacious individual.
Who are you?
Yeah. He's just like, I know, come in. So next week I came in, a 1 hour meeting went for 3, 2 weeks later I was advising, and then 6 months later they turned around and said, do you want to run it? And I went, absolutely. I mean, it was, out of all the tech stuff I got involved in, it was the one that really excited me, just given the opportunity. So here I am. So
that's the interesting part, because so two companies, I'm just going to presume MyProsperity is going to be huge, because I believe in it, but and you're on a massive trajectory, but 2 companies, quick decisions. You talked about not being the businessman behind it. How are you able to make really quick decisions? And for the entrepreneurs or the business owners, how important was that original relationship with the founders?
Look, it's a really good question, because I learned more in the year outside Xero than I probably learned in the 5 years I was there. And then that might seem odd, but the reason is I got involved in a number of different tech companies. So I invested in 5, but I got involved in about 10. And the things I learnt was, first and foremost, the most important thing for me was the people and the founders, because to that point, there are founders there that don't want to change stuff. Where, I would come in as advisor and say, look, I just don't think this is working, or these are the things that I would be thinking of to do. And, and there was some that were very stubborn, different personalities. So for me, it was about really being able to make that connection and know that we could work as a team. So that was probably the key thing. And that's so important. So the ability to make quick decisions, really, I mean, you'd expect as a startup, when you're small, you should have that culture. The bigger the organisation, generally the slower things are. But to be able to come in and be very nimble and make quick decisions, and those decisions, I've got so many great stories about how seemingly subtle things that occurred over a glass of wine in a restaurant, where you just go, hey, what if we did this? And then you look back years and just go, that was such a momentous decision. And that occasion, like, I still remember some things at Xero that we decided that were seemingly insignificant, and then years down the track you just go, holy shit, that was the moment where we just went, actually, we should maybe do this. And the same's happening in MyProsperity. So I love that, because it's that kind of, that nimbleness, that excitement was just like, yeah, that's a good idea, well, let's do it. And so that doesn't happen in big organizations. I think that's the thing that's why I got out of corporate.
Well, it doesn't happen in a lot of small organisations either. So you talked about how both Xero and MyProsperity have been pretty unique.
Yep.
And a lot of that's in and around the availability of cash in the business.
Yep.
So how important is that for a CEO coming into a business, small business, with all of these ideas that you're having over a glass of wine?
Yeah.
All takes time, all takes personnel, all takes money.
Yeah. Hugely important. It was one of the things and that was the big difference coming out of Xero. I mean, Xero, people look at Xero and go, wow, you had so much capital, and we did. I mean, over the journey, Xero raised 450 million. Now, that's not normal. You can do a lot
5 years,
with 450 million, but you've got to understand, in the first year, my objective coming in as local CEO was, we're going to break even by the end of 2011. So that changed a lot of dynamics. I remember the first board meeting. They said, what do you need? And I said, well, I'm trying to compete with MYOB. I've got 2 salespeople. They've got 70% of the market. So there was those challenges, and there was like, well, you can have 5. It's like, oh, awesome, 5 heads. The next round, it was like, you can have 30. It's like, so raising money does change the dynamic. The thing, MyProsperity is probably a little bit more normal. We've raised 12, and 12 for a lot of startups is awesome. That's a lot of cash. We're frugal. We're very responsible, because at the end of the day, you're dealing with shareholder money, and they expect you to make the right decisions. And so you want to balance that risk and taking risk with the reality that this may not work, some of the things you're going to do. So and that scares a lot of people. They don't, that's a big responsibility, and I feel it every day. And I think that's something that as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you have to have that respect for the money that you're dealing with. But at the same time, when you raise money, they want you to spend it. you're not going to put it in the bank to earn interest. It's like, we want the business to go faster. So you're just balancing that risk with, with the, that responsibility.
Yeah, and if you didn't have the availability of cash?
Well, look, it restricts you, doesn't it? I mean, we've made some decisions recently that means we're investing in certain areas that otherwise we wouldn't be able to. So the ability to have, this is where I think good entrepreneurs, as well as running the business, you need to know how to play the game. And when I say that, I mean, you need to have an eye for how you're, dealing with investors, building a board, R&D grants, all of those things that I think are important to ensure that there's ongoing cash and you're doing it efficiently and effectively. I mean, there's some good grants available. So understanding that's really important, whilst obviously having an eye on the business. So you've got to be able to balance both, and that's a challenge.
You mentioned that you've got multiple smaller businesses that you're a part of, or that you've been a little bit of a part of. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming not all of them have been successful.
Well, of the 5 that I invested in, 1 hasn't gone well.
Yeah.
And the other 4, touch wood, are all doing well, and they're at different stages. So, and my role, I chose this one to run because I just really enjoyed working with Pete and Steve, and the team here's fabulous. And I believe in the tech because it's very similar to what I saw in Xero with accounting. I often refer to MyProsperity as being the kind of the Xero for the household finances. So very similar business model, very similar opportunity, and a big gap in the market. So that appealed to me. The others, I'm on the board of one. I advise to another one informally.
Specifically, what have been the things that have either been the mistakes that they've made, or the things that have really pulled them back from taking that next step?
I think the main one's leadership. The one that failed, it hasn't failed. It's failing. Let's face it. I won't try and polish it. It's a turd. It really, in that one, it came down to poor leadership. And this is a great example where we're dealing with a founder that was very clever and had built great tech, but was, combination of, God, I'm not going to mention who because of what I'm about to say, but, ego, not listening, poor engagement with staff, the culture. We can go on, but really all that came down to leadership. So you can have great tech, you can be in an area of the market with a great opportunity and still fail. I think the other one, this is an odd one, but attention to detail. Right, sometimes you build this tech platform and think, it's all going to go well, but if you don't really understand what the market's looking for, and you don't really get down into where are the gaps and what do you need to do, and that's really, sometimes you have to get down to minute detail to really understand what's going on. And sometimes I see entrepreneurs that's kind of, they've got good tech and everything, but they've got their head in the sky. It's great to be visionary, but I sometimes like founders that kind of really get into the weeds and understand it. Not that you don't want to operate there, but you've got to understand it. And I think, and that's what I found with Pete in particular, that he's very good at being able to get into the detail and know what's going on when he needs to, as well as being a great visionary. And that's a rare combination of skills. But what's the other stuff? They're probably the main ones. It's probably you're not paying attention to some of the detail.
Yeah, you've got to do the weeding.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Which
seems like, does everyone go, you got to be a big visionary? Actually, yeah, you do, but you've also got to really understand what's going on at the detailed level.
But the leadership thing's interesting, and I was just watching Shark Tank the other night, and it was just playing on in the background, and all of a sudden I heard the thing, or one of the sharks turn around and say, "How would you feel if we fired you, the CEO and the CFO of the business?" And they jumped at the chance of doing it. And obviously they're kind of limiting it, maybe from a leadership perspective. I didn't have the background on it, but.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, you look for people that, I always looked for, there was 3 things I would look for in a tech company these days, right? First one, people, right? You just got to know and feel trust and have people that have the passion, the spark, and that have the integrity as well. That for me was the number one. Number 2 is about the technology. Is it something that I can believe in? Is it something that I'm really passionate, like I get passionate about and feel it can make a big impact? The third one for me, selfishly, is commercial upside. So I was always looking for things that were early stages. Trust me,
makes sense.
I've looked at tech where founders, amazing. Technology, amazing. And then there was one in particular that had a valuation that was so over the top. When they're going for a pre-IPO, I just went, no, I can't get involved because I'm going to spend the next 3 years justifying that val. So you can have, so for me, they've got to tick all boxes.
What do you see maybe the two biggest mistakes that you've made, either at MyProsperity or at Xero? And what are the two wine moments?
Okay. So biggest mistakes. I think. It's a classic scenario. I think sometimes you just got to, hiring people, right? So early on in the Xero journey, I hired one or two people that I probably thought, good domain expertise, but weren't a great culture fit. We've all done it. And so the outcome from that was that throughout that journey at Xero, I was kind of, I wouldn't say I was a gatekeeper, but I interviewed, out of the 270, there's probably only 6 that I didn't interview.
Wow.
Which seems really weird, and a lot of people go, you're mad, but I didn't interview every candidate, but the last point I would just...
You said you were running skinny, right? But you had a HR department?
Yeah, I did, yeah, and it may only be 10, 15 minutes, but it did a couple of things. It was, I'd rarely say no, but when I was really passionate, it was a couple of classic examples where I'd say, we can't hire this person, in my view. And sometimes I'd be challenged, and I'd go, okay, your call, fine. But it just meant that I at least felt, that I had some sort of insight into the culture in terms of continuing to bring people in that had the passion, the drive, and adhered to our view of our values and things. The other thing it did was it would send a strong message, because I'd often have feedback, even with particularly junior roles, where they go, they'd be really nervous, and I've never been interviewed by the CEO. It's kind of funny, but I sent a positive message that I actually cared, regardless of role, about who was coming through the door and was going to, regardless of any role, you add to the culture. So that was probably taking the eye off the ball in the early days as we scaled, and it gets harder the bigger you get. And I'm not advocating everyone does that, but it was just one of my things. Probably at MyProsperity, I think the thing there was coming in thinking, well, I did it with Xero, so all this stuff's going to work, and I had all the answers. And I think whilst there are a lot of similarities between the business model, there's some nuances at MyProsperity that I hadn't figured out and just assumed that it was going to work. And things are working well, but it's some of the, again, coming back to the detail, did I really understand, those things? And, an example would be, we had too many steps in the partner journey, complicated things for partners coming on board, and it's forced us to step back and go, well, actually, we need to rethink it. So we had to change roles and do things in a much simpler way where we could get down to 3 things. You come on board as a partner, we help you get going through enablement, and then we support you. And it sounds really simple, but as we started to really better understand what was going on, it became obvious that I'd sort of tried to apply a model that didn't quite work. So that was a good lesson.
So given everything there and a few of the wine moments, where do you see MyProsperity from a client and an advisor perspective and a company perspective ultimately in 10 years? I guess piggybacking behind that question is, where do you see the world in 10 years? Yeah,
look, so the one thing that I really liked when I met Pete was, because I'd been involved in wealth management sort of advice solutions since my days at Microsoft. I was going into the banks in the late 90s showing them Microsoft Money, desktop application, quick file upload and stuff, because they were all thinking about, they were all starting to push out internet banking as a platform, and how do we actually get close to the client? And anyway, and then at Xero, even when I joined Xero, they had a personal wealth platform, Xero Personal, and we shut that down. We started promoting Cashbook. So I've sort of been in and around it, and I get the opportunity, and having experienced it myself as with my advisor signing me up to MyProsperity, I saw the instant impact of just saying, this is the first time in my 26 years that I actually have everything sorted in one place. And it was a profound moment. I just went, well, everyone needs this. So when I met Pete, I said, well, as a client, I get it. Like, it's so cool. My geeky party trick is I can get every insurance policy in PDF form on my mobile phone. I even text Pete on Sunday. I went to the footy with the family. I was demoing MyProsperity to a guy in the train, and he said, you've lost it. But I'm really passionate about this because it's so cool. I think everyone can use it, regardless if you're high net worth or whatever. everyone's got their financial shit everywhere and they need to get it sorted. And so the big thing about MyProsperity is that we believe in advisors. We believe the advisor has to be the solution to help clients, once they've got everything sorted, to actually get ahead, to make sense of it all and actually make good financial decisions. And it doesn't have to be something where, you're getting charged $1,000 a month on a retainer. Advice can come in many different forms, but the fact is that 15% of Australians use a financial planner. Those that don't, 86% are worried about their personal finances. So there's a big gap. So I think there's a huge opportunity post-Royal Commission, after all the beat up and all the negativity, to actually get back, work with advisors and actually help them do a great job in helping clients. So that's why I'm involved in it. That's kind of the purpose. If you're like, where do I see it? Well, I think just the platform's going to get better and better. Machine learning, artificial intelligence, all those, great terms, because if you use those, you sound like a tech startup.
Yeah,
when you say machine learning, well. I might even chuck in Bitcoin. But in all seriousness, a lot of the technology is going to help arm the advisor to know more about their client. And that's a big thing that's come out of the Royal Commission. So we gather all the data, but where I'm excited is how do we actually start to arm the advisor? Bring in, we'll call it robo-advice, but elements where we can empower the advisor just to do a vastly better job. I say better job, but just an awesome job in engaging clients. And it starts with knowing what they're about. All those client surveys and all the little cool things we do on the platform starts to build a picture. It means that you're going to know your client better than anyone, and you're going to be more successful because you know them, and they're going to be happier because you're making good decisions that are informed and not based on, here's a product I want to sell you, or I'm going to make a guess here, you got 20 grand, let's put it here. It's like, nah, let's really understand how I'm going to help you with your life events. And I think that's where the technology can do a lot of the heavy lifting and make it much more efficient.
So that's the tech side of the equation.
Yep.
We'll wrap up in a tick, but a few last things. If you had three tips to give small business owners who are looking at scaling their business and maybe are not at the Xero stage, they're at the pre-Xero, pre-MyProsperity stage, what would the first three things you would say, these are the most important things to focus on?
Well, I mean, some of them are obvious, but I'll say them anyway. I mean, one is to really understand the market you're in and know the customer, right? Some of the most insightful things that I ever did was, we're about to make a big decision, and we would get, particularly I've done this at Xero and we're doing this at MyProsperity, we get some partners in and actually have a chat. Just go, hey, we're thinking of doing this, and actually really understand what it is that you're doing or about to do, so that you're informed. Because if you're going to go and blow some money on doing stuff, you want to try and de-risk it by actually knowing what you're doing. I think the other thing, and I mentioned this, is just really understanding the importance of of hiring and the cultural side of things. Because as you're scaling a business, that's the one thing that can really bite you in the bum. Even when I've gone into organisations with 15 staff that have shitty cultures.
Culture vampires.
Yeah, you got to just know that the people. I love coming in here because everyone in MyProsperity we're an incredibly diverse team. We come at things from very different perspectives, but the one thing we share is just a really good common set of values. And you feel it when you deal with our people. I mean, I'm really proud of that. So as an entrepreneur, for your stuff, as a business owner, that's the one thing that when you ultimately reflect back on the things that you did really well, for me it was always, we built an awesome team, so that's really key. And then the other thing, I think particularly for me, which I enjoy, but I think even when you're small, I think it's around the experience, and it's around not just the experience of the product, but in the experience in actually working with your brand and your people. So it's building a profile. You see yourselves, no matter how small, if you're dealing with an organisation or a little company that just nails the experience, they've got a great website, might have a mobile app, the people are awesome, the support's fantastic, the branding, everything about it's just super cool. Like you just want to engage with that business. I think they're the things, just really understanding the experience, because for us, it's about continuing to improve the product, but every interaction with our brand, with our people, with our company, I want it to be an awesome experience. And that comes down to the profile, the events we run, everything's just got to be a great kind of experience. So that would be the other one.
Well, that probably comes a little bit from your background, and just to kind of remove you from the pedestal that people put you on instantaneously, because pretty successful past that you've had.
Yeah.
Who's Chris behind the Chris?
Oh, look, I love the technology. I wouldn't describe myself as a mad geek. I meet some entrepreneurs and they're, at night time they're playing computer games and they're just totally into it. I've always, 30 years, I studied accounting and marketing, economics.
And contradiction.
Yeah. And then, but I was always, loved tech and got involved in tech at a time when, in the late 80s. So, we're going back. But so I'm just a big believer that technology can have a profound impact on business. For me personally, outside of work, I'm, I wouldn't say I'm an adrenaline. We were talking about skydiving and stuff. And
I will call bullshit if this goes in a different direction.
No, but passions are surfing, cycling. I love my music. I'm a guitarist and just all those sorts of fun things, which are still, I think it's about balance. So, and I'm a family guy, so I've got 3 kids and married, and so, and just on the entrepreneur side, it's probably just, I think I've been one of those lucky people, and I talk to a lot of people that are stuck in that corporate world, and probably my platform is, you've got to reinvent yourself. You've got to have a crack. I look back 10 years ago thinking about what I've done in the last 10 years, thinking 10 years ago, would I have envisaged it? No way. And I just went, I thought, no, bugger this, because I'm not happy, I'm going to take a punt. And I think more people should do that, because it's amazing what you can achieve when you actually throw yourself in the deep end. And that's what I've learned. So it's been fun.
One last question.
Yep.
Have you ever had the chance to pick up the phone and call any of the 5 people who didn't give you the job before you took it up with Xero?
Well, I still speak with them, but so one of them, I shouldn't go. That's a hard question. No, I talk to all of them. So these are close friends in my network that, if anything, reflecting back, and for various reasons, they didn't work out. It wasn't that there was only one of those 3 that they offered me and turned down. It was more that there were opportunities. But look, on that, I think it's great to have that network, because for me that was the thing that spurred me to action. It was the ability, because sometimes, whether you're in big corporate or whether you're doing a startup, it can be a lonely place. So I think having a network of people as a sounding board, because for me, had I not made those 6 phone calls, I might still be at Microsoft. Wow. Which wouldn't be a bad thing, because the share price is up 4 times since I left. So, but I didn't want to stay as a corporate soldier, and I'm really proud of what I've been able to achieve, and just sort of throw myself in the deep end. But it was a sounding board of people just to go, give it a crack. Good idea. You've been there 15 years. What the hell are you doing? It's time to move on. So so that was good.
Awesome. From me, K2, the community, and my clients and advisors, thank you very much, mate. Appreciate it.
Good on you, Andy. Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you. Mate, you're a superstar.
Oh, no. That was good fun.